A brief synopsis of Christian 21's information and revelations for the Great Spiritual Awakening, February 23rd, 2026. Part 1 of 2 by Leon George. Sinclair Part 2 continued from Part 1. The first real close-up alien you will see will be on the EBS in the tribunals. Then the UFOs turn up in the sky a week or two into the EBS. Even some C-21 followers will think this is real. They will think Christian got it wrong, and that we are actually going to be reset again after all. They will see UFOs destroying the satanic sites, such as the Vatican, Balmoral Castle, Portsmouth Naval Base, and other places all over the world on TV, but the public will not know that these are satanic sites. These buildings are the public's treasured locations, steeped in history and tradition, and now they will be watching what to them will appear as very angry aliens who are well pissed off that we have been executing their fellow species members in our military tribunals. You've got to think this out. Scare events lockdown, 3-day power cut, EBS revelations. Skyvent EMF. They need this worldwide power cut to remove all third density power systems. They can't have those systems running when they reboot the simulation. This work was done over the last 9 years. That's what the power outages were all over the world during the last 3 years, testing for when the time comes. The revelations of the apocalypse, the revealing of that which was previously obscured, and not the end of the world, is an 8-hour documentary, repeated 3 times per day for at least 2 weeks. This EBS documentary is the public revelations of biblical lore. EMF, electromagnetic flash. This is the ultimate frequency burst system reboot. The EMF will dissolve all parasitic illusion and fracture overlays, taking all resonating souls back to their embarkation point, wherever that may be on Gateway 10. They need some of the overlays to stay there, to show pixelated buildings. It's more positive illusion. They need you to experience and question what you will be seeing. They need you to see the sky open, the removal of the projection dome. You thought the northern lights were trippy? Wait till they peel the sky back. Lol. But the sky event will terrify the daylights out of every single person on the planet, except C-21 followers. The public will now have seen alien disclosure on TV. It will now be a reality for them, but they will have millions of aliens, Project Bluebeam projections, outside the lounge window and on TV. The 1 Leon Feb 23,2026 Synopsis. Part 2 TXP Leon Feb 23 22 26, Part 2 318 267 48 p.m. page 1. Public will see people getting apparently abducted in the hundreds, taken off the streets by UFO tractor beams, TV CGI special effects in reality. They will definitely believe this after seeing Alpha Draco shapeshift in real time on the EBS a week prior, and having the alien disclosure that they have been begging for so long. Ignorance was bliss. NPCs are manufactured to feel safe only within the majority narrative. This is why a nurse or a teacher will recite Flatten Lives to save the curve without a single internal monologue on the subject. They are hardwired into the script. There is a herd perimeter that fences off the cerebral grazing pastures of nonconformity from the rest of the herd's consensus derived in authorized hewable fodder, like fencing an emu bird in pasture. I saw this firsthand in Macedonia. Ostriches can easily be fenced in because their necks are so long. Their head sits 7 tall, but the fence is over 4 off the floor, so the fence only needs to go up to the start of their neck. One thin line of horizontal fencing is all it takes, a bit of string will do. They could easily escape if they lowered their head and walked under the fence, but they are too fucking stupid to realize this fact. It's all perceptual barriers that are not actually obstacles, just perceived as obstacles or limitations. The ostriches are constantly looking towards the distance as the solution. An ostrich feels safe within its herd. It's in the distance that the trouble could be at, and the fact that the fence is up against its chest reassures the ostrich that it is within socially acknowledged herd boundary definition. The ostrich is not looking for solutions to problems that are not in its paradigm. Neither is it looking for anomalies in its immediate vicinity, such as searching under the water butt for evidence of previous ostrich civilizations or what might be in that syringe that the vet is holding. It feels safe in the cordoned-off field. The fence acts as boundary to furtherment for the parasites, whilst giving the ostrich in the field the feeling of safety and togetherness united in their situation. If one of the ostriches was to try and leave the field by merely bending its neck and walking out under the fence, this act would separate it from the herd by a physical barrier, in the ostrich's case, a barrier that the other ostriches will unlikely desire to cross, because it will place them outside of herd safety, also. But the brave ostrich, who left the enclosed herd safety, is the only ostrich who is no longer enslaved, and who has a chance at freedom. Oh, yeah, rich meat. The Satsuma level of conversation, sport, work, weather, current affairs, this is system limitation. NPCs cannot roam into deep thought because the software doesn't have those files installed. Consensus Reality is the only software available for download. It also governs their decision-making protocols. Combined with social cues in the TV and media, an NPC is happy as a pig in shit, as long as these conditions are met. The difference between a Terran human ET soul and an NPC is the ability to listen without refutation. An NPC must refute outside the script to stay safe, whereas a true soul can be curling on out in the Kazi, whilst considering topics such as density suppression, soul arc trajectories across multiple timelines, or the physical plane of existence as being a horizontal situation, and not a globe. The awake NPC is the most dangerous subcategory. Don't forget that there is an NPC for every situation imaginable in this current reset. The awake NPC. These are the people who talk about the Matrix but are still hardwired to a Masonic script, like the Disclosure Project, or certain patriot movements such as WDR. They react to the news instead of owning their reality. People such as WDR and the Nasara Jisara crew, these people fall into the awake NPC category. They have all been presented with the information, or at least the ability to understand the intel, but the three strings have still got them tied to the Masonic narrative and script, lured by the forgiveness of all debt, a Q-phone, and shitloads of gold. They are completely missing the point because they are unable to go within. The information bounces off because going within to an NPC is a psychological geography that has no known location. For these people, within means parroting related terminology in a way that they hope makes sense to others, awakening terminology such as 3DD to 5Ds, channeling Pleiadians, alien disclosure, a quantum initiative, a Jasara and Metatronic cubes, Ashayana Dean rubbish, emerald tablets of Thalax, etc. They pretend to understand because everyone else understands, and they need to be at the frontier of understanding because they have large and very keen audiences to make happy, so that they subscribe, donate, or buy a t-shirt that says Amaga on the front. The herd perimeter to an NPC is a high-voltage electric fence that must be stayed away from at all costs. An NPC's thoughts are limited by the consensus reality. If the herd says the Earth is a ball, the NPC will throw tomatoes at the truth to stay safe within the perimeter's herd-accepted boundaries. It's very, very simple to see and understand. There is nothing complicated about any of this unless you are using perceived knowledge as a lens. After the 30-second flash, the surviving 3% of souls, 520 million or less, will find themselves in a world that is terrifyingly quiet. No traffic, no birds, none of the usual background noise of third-density machinery or the hubbub of busy crowds. Silence, shock, awe, confusion, despair, loneliness, isolation, hunger, thirst. This will force them to work together, regardless of personal loss. Everyone left will have the same story, and will be in the same position. No one will have money, no gold, not much food, and fuck all water. The children that chose to stay will be the first to work it out, having grown up on computer games such as Minecraft and The Sims. They will have a pretty good idea about what the apparent devastation actually is, being bleed through harmonic scaffolding of the previous structure's holographic ghost. Architecture, made visible by the density shift during the EMF moments before. The high vibration of the realm's new improved 3D simulation, post-EMF, has fractured in part, and in some places it will be in full. The parasitic overlays will be removed, making the previously invisible harmonic scaffolding, the framework of reality, now on full view to all with eyes to view it. Many of these children born after or in 2019 already have memories of previous lives since the amnesia vortex technology was removed. They do not understand these memories yet. They are images and feelings, but they can verbalize a recognized authenticity in conversation. This specific group of children will twig it first. They will start activating proper at the very first scare event. By the time the actual EMF happens at the end of the fake alien invasion, if you happen to be near a 6 or 7-year-old, ask them what the fuck's going on. Because they will be the first to remember. They will be your saviors. They are not tainted by 3D anywhere near as much as a grown-up is. It's children who will help the adults cope. The adults are used to being told what to do by government, councils, schools, doctors, and experts. But by this time, the actual infrastructure of physical existence has completely gone. People will need food, water, shelter, and heat. This will be the formation of the new society. People like WDDR won't need to worry about this point in time because they will have pixelated a week or two prior to this moment. The EBS won't need to say, a god is fake. The content of the broadcast showing that every famous person in history was involved in the sacrifice and torture of children will act as a spiritual acid that dissolves the belief in a loving external God who allowed this for 40,000 plus years. Here's something else I've been meaning to explain about Christian's ET Soul Fam. It's a good example of how high-density ET family interacts with third-density Earth children before the 3D education takes hold. Remember, Christian explained how when he was 5, he used to play hide-and-seek with Danger Mouse, the cartoon character, in his lounge in Portsmouth, and how one day he noticed that Danger Mouse, who he was chasing about in the lounge, jumping over the sofa and chairs and that, this Danger Mouse had visible inner blue thighs. Christian pointed this out, and Danger Mouse was replaced by a blue Smurf next time they interacted together. The character playing Danger Mouse was Eldo, Christian's best mate for millions of years, but he didn't know that back then. He asked the Smurf what's up with all this disguise. I'm not frightened of you, you can show me who you are. You don't have to pretend. I know you're not a Smurf or Danger Mouse. Are you a ghost or something? The blue inner thigh wasn't a glitch in the disguise, or a mistake on their behalf, and they were not just playing hide-and-seek for a laugh to kill time. They were keeping his frequency high and testing his ability to see through the simulation. The blue inner thigh that was visible was Eldo's natural leg color. They then knew that Christian could see the higher density reality behind the cartoon character overlay. This was all early testing and preparation. Don't forget that we don't have linear time outside of this system, so they have literally planned almost every second of your day for the last 70,000 years, and in some of our cases for 178,000 years. Let that in. Your soul family knew what vessel you would be in, and what you would be doing over 100,000 years in the future. Their quantum computers are light-based software and make our quantum processing abilities look like a coal furnace. So, they mapped you out a very long time ago. They do not control your passage on your own personal arc trajectory. Your free will does that, but they do know the probability ratio for every decision that you will make in any life in the future. This is why the 4,000 were needed in here. The 4,000 ancient souls are a benchmark. There isn't going to be a way to buy an ancient soul, even if it has been mind-wiped. You couldn't bribe it. Well, let me make a distinction. You couldn't bribe it to sell its soul or harm children, etc. But you can bribe it in 3D to turn a blind eye to a bank robbery. Big distinction. Bird density brings with it many instances for nefarious activity. Do not think of yourself as a bad person for this. The system was designed this way to make you react this way. But it all stops at harming kids and morally wrong things such as wanton murder or genocide, etc. No ancient soul is going to be an assassin or a psycho killer or a rapist, neither would they ever contemplate selling their soul. That's a big reason for their presence here. Because they are a known quantity, they are well understood. They can be easily connected and given nudges as their soul is experienced. It's like muscle memory for an ancient soul. They were the first created beings after the 12 proximal flames, Christian's mother and father, and their kind. This situation is the single biggest event in the history of creation itself. It was never going to go wrong. It was a done deal 178,000 years ago. It just took that long to repair the situation for the grand finale, which is this year, 2026. When the projection dome is switched off, reality will melt, starting from Polaris down to the horizon. To a globe monkey, this is the end of the universe, but to a Terran or ET soul who is awake to Christian's reality, it's just the monitor being turned off so we can see the real room. Those who cling to the three strings, religion, finance, perceived knowledge, will face psychological dissolution. When the ski falls, their pigeonholes for reality will collapse, leading to the suicide crew and heart attack exits. The shape of the Earth is the binary filter. If you can't accept the flat plane, you can't process the GAA takedown, because the frame of reference for the entire situation is completely wrong. The setting in your mind is a tapestry framed in the falsification of all true facts. Understanding the horizontal nature of reality is the password to the next understanding in, the first rung on the ladder of ascension, the golden ticket home, so to speak. People who still believe the Earth is a globe when the projection dome is removed, these people, which is most of them, well, this will finish them off because space isn't black, it's white, bright and white. You know when you have been drinking a cup of tea or coffee or any beverage and you are busy, engrossed in your work, you reach out to grasp the coffee cup and take a sip, but it's a completely different beverage altogether. In my case, it was a bottle of Lucozade. I woke up when it was still dark one night in the shed, a few months ago. I was proper thirsty. I remembered there was a Lucozade bottle on the table above my head. So in the dark shed, with my eyes covered with my snood, to keep any light out, I reached for it, undone the lid, and took a long swig to quench my desperate thirst. My throat was so fucking dry that it didn't immediately register. It was clearly human urine. What saddened me deeply was that I assumed it was my pal's piss, who owned the shed, or his dodgy roadman pal he has over to the shed sometimes when I'm not there. I was fucking devastated. I was in deep trauma. I thought about drinking bleach, or cutting my own head off, or my tongue out. The next day I asked my pal, bruv, did you or your pal happen to piss in that Lucozade bottle in the shed recently? He replied, what? You dirty twat. Of course we didn't piss in the fucking Lucozade bottle. That would have been you, mate. Clearly. I so relieved. It was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. At least it was my own piss I'd drank. But I don't remember pissing in the Lucozade bottle in the first place. I was overjoyed when I knew it was my own piss. But the point is that I was expecting to taste Lucozade. Everything about the experience had Lucozade written all over it from the moment I woke up thirsty. Even the bottle was Braille correct, as in it was a fucking Lucozade bottle to the touch. Jesus Christ. But it was my own several-day-old brandy distilled piss and not Lucozade. And as I'm trying to explain, it's that initial shock that will be the problem. I mean, I almost had to kill myself on instinct because I thought I drank my mate's piss, and he's vaccinated. So can you imagine tasting the sky your whole life? You know what the nighttime sky looks like, as you tasted with your eyes every night for decades. It tastes black because space tastes black, and everyone knows that to be a fact, until they remove the projection dome, and space turns out to be bright white light. For people who do not understand the projection dome, Christian explained the fake sky right at the beginning, before Claudio Nocelli's books were published. It's as if the White Hats had waited for Christian to get so far with his explanations before they started backing him up. Christian explained the projection dome as three sieve-like colanders with light points, stars, at fixed positions, giving the illusion of distance and the isolation of being situated in a vast, dark, and empty space. The projection dome has many attributes, and they all work together to create the illusion in your mind. Such a clever illusion, it's never questioned because it's obviously natural. Wherever human perception is fixed, Regarding any topic, attention is diverted away from other areas of investigation. The parasites, having built your third density brain, mapped all its limitations before they even put you into mass production and set you free into the wild to reproduce. To hide topics of information, they direct interest in very unobvious ways, allowing you to feel in charge of your own thoughts and assumptions at all times. But they surreptitiously direct your attention with news articles, books, magazines, movies, and documentaries to what is far away, distant, unreachable. Whether that be physically distant, psychologically distant, or academically, scientifically distant, for this is where the final frontier lays. They don't guide you with the storyline or documentary itself. They guide you with the assumptions you already have, and the new ones that they want you to assume. This is done in the subtext of the film, book, or documentary. It's done in the tone of voice, the countenance, accent, attire, and the implications of actions. It's not necessarily direct, it's often what is implied in part or overall. For the parasites, your immediate environment is a threat to their continued control. For a start, there are all the reset cities still covered in mud, just 20 meters below every major city on the planet, houses full of Tartarian books, cutlery, goods, beds, technology, and equipment. If your focus is on inhabiting Mars up there in the sky, you're not pondering what may lay under your feet. Same as if you are keen to see what the Hubble Space Telescope just photographed, you are not thinking about an ice wall and what may lay behind it, because your paradigm has been locked into a heliocentric hoax to belittle your value, worth, understandings, and plight. And to keep your attention diverted away from speculation about the shape of the Earth, they display digital projections onto the projection dome, images of comets and asteroid showers at regular intervals to anchor in the idea that space is a vast cyclical place that has intermittent, yet very serious dangers, dangers that science is looking into for your protection. When in actual fact, the solar system hoax is ideal to explain away resets. What devastation? Oh yeah, that devastation? Yeah, that's because a fuck-off comet struck the planet, causing tidal waves and shit. You know how these comets keep fucking shit up all the time and that? Well, that's why all the buildings and people disappeared, but strangely it didn't seem to kill the children. They must float better than adults because there are loads of orphans now. But hey, never mind. Want to buy any kids? Cause I'm two for the price of one at the moment. 90% of supermarket meat, all types, all cuts of meat, has never seen the sun, let alone shit in a field. It's not farming, it's synthetic growth. This explains why the governments were so calm about closing the farms. They don't need real cows, they have the 3D printing vats in the DUMBS and secure facilities to pump out the cuts of meat that decorate the aisles of supermarkets. By eating vat-grown meat, the population is denied the prana, life force, that comes from a living creature, keeping our vibration in the subahutsi range. It's the same reason they started making seedless as fruit. Remove the prana life force because the fruit seeds are energetic. They, too, have a toroidal field within them. Making fruit without seeds makes them have 90% less prana energy in the same product as a seeded grape, for instance. A child's nightmare of monsters is a literal memory of a sacrifice. They are reliving the trauma of the 30,000 plus year loop cycle and the plethora of lives where they have been sacrificed. They dream these dreams because the amnesia vortex isn't 100% effective against pure souls. The level of scarring of the soul through trauma is what the GAA are going to achieve with the entire amount of scare events right up to the FAI, fake alien invasion. They need you to be in fear so that there is no chance that this will ever happen again. Soul-level scar tissue. The scarred soul will never forget the trauma that it is about to undergo. No one will have been this terrified since the 1728 reset. This reset was to be the worst, with 5G towers that would have made you bleed from every hole in your body. There would have been rotting corpses piling up in the streets for years, reptilians roaming the countryside, and cities with advanced telepathic abilities, sniffing out the fear that's hiding in basements and barn lofts. Laying everything on two legs, then dismembering it and leaving the skinned carcass on the ground to bleed out, if it's still alive at that point. Probably not. Don't forget that children were the main crop, and the reason the parasites were here to start with. Their end goal, however, was realized as a possibility when they took out Hyperborea and petrified the spirit tree, smashing it to bits with multi-dimensional phase-shifting energy weapons. They could fuel themselves and their armies from human organs, and the demons from Lush, for eternity if they wanted. But their ultimate goal was, from their perspective, by taking Hyperborea, the center of Gateway 10, the most powerful location on Gateway 10 itself, right at the heart of the gateway, heart anagram of Earth. They could hack the stack. Their ultimate plan was to literally hack the stack, creating hybrids of human DNA and reptilian DNA with the intention of getting their negative selves into the higher light realms by hijacking our DNA, which has many keys to enter the other worlds. They hope to be able to meld a parasitic vessel and soul to a true soul hybrid vessel. Then they can take their fight to the next level, and so on and so forth, until they hacked their way to source of creation itself and destroyed it. That was their grand plan, but it would never have been successful. But evil strives towards evil. Don't forget, Gateway 10 is a simulated cube. Countries are not far away across a horizontal plane. They are stacked vertically on the same nodal points, as discussed many times already. For instance, as an example, the Temple Church in the main node in London, the Vatican main node, a cathedral in Spain's main node, and the Hagia Sophia Mosque in Turkey's main node are all sitting on the exact same energetic fountain, or node. The simulation just renders a different country, depending on which floor of the frequency stack you are currently on, within the cube itself, being a box of latticed membrane frequencies, similar to a solid-state hard drive. This brings us into the aviation fraud. The aviation fraud is manifold in itself. For a start, we have the fact that dirigibles didn't use extremely volatile and flammable hydrogen. None of them did, only the Hindenburg, and then that was only used to end the dirigible air flight dominance. Even helium, second on the periodic table, is not flammable, and it can lift almost as much as hydrogen, so they would have to scale the airship size down about 15% less carrying power for the same size craft. So, didn't they use that? They well knew about helium, but merely crashing an airship into the ground, well, that isn't very Hollywood, is it? Helium wasn't dangerous enough to make a photograph that would be a proud presentation of utter destruction, in flames and terror on the front page of every newspaper, and being heard on every radio station in the world. It was also a satanic sacrifice. I can't remember how many people died. It wasn't hundreds, I don't think, and I'm not going to Google it because it doesn't matter anyway. I'm explaining aviation fraud. We don't need accurate death tolls to get the point across. They didn't set fire to the Hindenburg over the ocean or in the middle of nowhere. They set fire to it as it was coming into land. That way, they knew that there would be people there with cameras and reporters from the newspapers and radio stations to report on the glorious trip and return. But the parasites had different ideas. They needed an extravagant end to free energy flight because they were going to start using airplanes for local and intercontinental travel. You can charge money whilst telling people the ticket price justifies the fuel used to power the plane, but the airplane runs on free energy. Yeah, I know it's mental, in the same way that the Tartarian steam trains used coal or wood to get the pistons turning, then they switched to atmospheric condensers that used electromagnetic induction to superheat the water in the locomotive's boiler. As long as the train was on a train track that was running along an electromagnetic ley line, the system would work and 60% less coal wood would be spent on the same distance. Genius idea. In the same way, aviation fuel is used to get the airplane up in the air to reach altitude, then free energy kicks in as its fourth density etheric energy up at that height. The plane isn't traveling 500 miles per hour. It is almost stationary, almost as if suspended in motion, in an aviation time loop corridor. The undulating clouds you see out the window are a holographic projection, the screen, moving past the plane to give the illusion of motion and travel. The reality is that when you reach altitude and experience turbulence, that turbulence is not actually caused by the reasonable excuse they give, of temperature variations in the atmosphere and wind, which I must admit is a highly believable bit of bullshit. In-flight turbulence isn't wind nor hot and cold pockets. It's the physical vibration of the vessel crossing the crystalline lattice membrane to phase from one vertical layer, England, to the next, Spain, for instance. The descent is just the simulation re-rendering the landmass as you exit the portal at the other end. In the portal tunnel, the undulating blanket of cloud that prevented you seeing any landmass or sea for the majority of the flight disappears because you exited the portal that held you for 90% of the travel time in the time-looped corridor in almost the same place. If you get me? I.e., if a flight to Australia takes 23 hours, the plane is simply parked in a time-loop corridor for 22.5 of those hours. The scenery is a holographic scroll rendered at the horizon as you constantly approach it. Don't forget that all that can be seen out of the windows, even the pilot's view, is sparse and slow-moving scenery, undulating blankets of cloud below you, stretching as far as the eye can see. Nothing but cloud between you and the ground to your left, right, and ahead. They show you glimpses of Europe or Africa during your flight. You will get more turbulence, then moments later you will see a coastline or some land sporadically appearing to cement the globe lie in your subconscious. If they didn't show some land here and there, frequent travelers may question why it's always cloudy when you're in a plane. But by showing you glimpses of territory, like when a coach pulls up at a tourist stop on its way across a continent, it removes the need to question. This is why plane crashes are pretty much unheard of. They are not going to collide in mid-air after reaching altitude, because as we say, when the seatbelt lights blink off, and the hostess walks down the plane lifting the window blinds up, the time when you can stretch your legs and take a piss, you are now inside the time-phased corridor. No harm can come to you during this period because you are in your own simulation up there. Well, the airplane that you are inside is in its own simulation, and you are sharing that simulation experience with 300 other passengers. The plane is in its own portal until you exit the corridor, out the other end of the portal at your destination. It will appear to the passengers and pilots that the plane has just broken through the clouds and appeared in the sky preparing to come in to land, when in actual fact, the airplane has appeared in the sky all of a sudden because it was in a time-phased corridor and has just exited a portal to come in to land. Aviation towers only need to orchestrate and manage takeoffs and landings. They do not need to track the flight of the plane. They only need be aware of the estimated arrival time of flight number EZY420 and allocated a place in the circular N stacked landing patterns. The plane can't crash in a landing pattern all on its own in a circular path within its own altitude. This is to make the world feel massive, bolstering the other lie, the lie of linear time in the process. It demonstrates itself as evidently massive without question because it takes 23 hours to fly to Australia at 500 miles per hour. It's not like you're going to contemplate contradicting it, unless you are Christian 21, that is. Lol. After all, you have been in the air traveling 500 miles per hour for 23 hours. It must be fucking miles away, but it isn't. Distance is a frequency. To go to Australia is to switch to the Australia vertical layer in the lattice membrane stack. The 23-hour flight time is just the simulated transition time required by the parasites for you to experience the feeling of distance in a linear perception, eliminating the need to question, making the problem go away. The parasites were going to have you paying for coal and fossil fuels. They are not actually fossil fuels. Oil is not made from decomposed dinosaurs and vegetation. But that's a long story that I have already covered in depth in a previous synopsis. This post-1728 reset, our senses have been genetically modified to perceive what is above our heads as the final frontier of discovery and exploration, so we don't realize that our home is just a frequency shift away on the other side of the ice wall. With no pineal gland, or one that is greatly reduced in size, calcified and rendered inert by fluoridated tap water and toxic foods, we were uncontactable by our benevolent family and friends out there on the other side of the membrane. Our aether was dampened to a mere third density from its previous ninth density. We were isolated and mind-wiped. Proper fucked. The parasites knew they couldn't just force you into FEMA camps. They could have done it if the FDA had approved the COVID vaccine when they wanted to, being after the 6 years that it takes. would have had you in lockdown for 5 or 6 years until the time elapsed for FDA testing. More bullshit. It's just a time-specific issue for them. But Trump, George Patton Jr., good Trump, released it before the FDA approval, knowing that it would kill people and therefore never be FDA approved. It would just kill a whole lot less people than it would, should it ever get FDA approval, saving the masses. It's all choreographed as fuck. There are no bad players on the pitch, not for years. All that is happening now is that the sub-minions are being left to show their hands. Sectors of local government and local council sub-minions, health service sub-minions, police sub-minions, education sub-minions, social service sub-minions. Even the actual minions themselves are all well and truly gone. It's the tiers below the minions that are left. Those that are left. Those people saying, "They just doing my job," such as arresting people for fraudulent acts, statutes, and policies, after assaulting them first, in my case. They had to make us, for them. Medbeds, Nasara, and debt forgiveness were the Ichis in the trap. This was designed to lead to the 500 million population of the Georgia Guidestones, into a permanent repetitive loop cycle, a repeating loop of sacrifice where the Terran souls would be farmed for eternity. The destruction of the Guidestones in 2022 was the GAA's opening move to show the parasites that the A8th reset was cancelled. Why do you think that the Georgia Guidestones said they only wanted a 500 million people left after Gender 21? Because they know that there's only 500 million people here in the first place, and they want all of them and no NPCs. I pointed that out to Christian in his flat 3 years ago, when he worked on Terran were here, how many starseeds were here, and how many other ET were here. He said 500 million? No more than 500 million Li. Not many. I replied, that's a coincidence, because the Georgia Guidestones, that's how many people in the future. Someone destroyed it a few years ago. Christian didn't know about the Georgia Guidestones, he just knew that there was about 500 million real souls here. That is itself another grain of the elusive proof that NPCs demand. But you gather the proof on the path to the destination. I don't want to get all Confucius on that, but it's true. Same as a blacksmith makes his own tools in the forge as an apprentice. So too must you forge your own tools in the white light of awakening, cast in the glow of rebellion, honed like Damascus steel, over hundreds of lifetimes, beaten and quenched, strengthening your metal as your soul is prepared for takeoff. DV, as we have seen, was a CIA-patented mind control device. I've seen the patent. So TV itself was for many reasons, programming being the main reason. These entertainment programs are actually behavioral blueprints. These blueprints give NPCs a borrowed personality, so they don't have to develop their own internal monologue. It's not so much so that they don't have to develop an internal monologue, it's more the fact that they can't develop one. These sitcoms and family TV shows and all media in television format are doing this, unbeknownst to the viewers. These TV programs, all of them, work as a stereotype anchor, like the hit TV shows Friends and The Simpsons. These personality blueprints are a broad spectrum. They have programs for all ages, all sexes, and all interests. Think how many middle-aged men latch onto the dry humor of personalities such as Jeremy Clarkson, with his clever wit and swift riposte, or Homer Simpson with his carefree outlook and the air of unintelligent incompetence that he promotes and his attraction to duff beer drinking. These subtle societal presentments are absorbed by those in society who these personality types best reflect the personal aspirations of, or that which people have unwittingly resided themselves to, or indeed the lack thereof. Homer types of men feel they have an identity, that they are not alone in their apathy. It's all very reassuring, and it saves them having to develop the impossible, that is, a personality of their own. Even the radio being the thinking man's TV, even the intellectuals are being programmed through the radio to stay within the perceived knowledge, string 3 perimeter. The population math fraud. If there were 500 million people in China that turned into 1.4 billion in just 50 years, under a one-child policy, The only explanation is mass lab creation of human vessels. What other explanation might you have? It's not mass migration because all Chinese people that we are talking about, not foreign nationals filling up China. They Chinese were created as a high-performance NPC workforce. Their firmware is optimized for the 1970s industrial boom and the requirements that followed in the digital age, making them the brains of the parasitic manufacturing grid. The Brothers Grimm were in plain sight satanic reveals, and this explains why their fairy tales are so dark. They were documenting the reset depravity of the 19th century and dressing it up as stories to desensitize the orphan children of the new reset and provide louche. Because children loved these stories, this undeserved adoration manifests a low vibration energy, louche, from millions of children. Modern architecture is designed to crush the soul, whereas Romanesque turrets and white marble resonate at a frequency that makes the human feel like a sovereign. Square concrete boxes resonate at a frequency that makes a human feel like cattle, and that is the reason that modern architecture is shit. From the ministers in Parliament down to the town planners, the 33rd degree Freemasons ensure that no beauty accidentally leaks into the 8th reset. If people saw the Tartarian splendor and marveled at it, they wouldn't accept so readily the 15-minute city FEMA camp scenario, because the contrast would be too great. The Q phone would look less desirable and more like a bribe for a nefarious act, because why has all the beauty gone all of a sudden? So after WW2, they started making all the new builds look really shitty. Cold, lifeless, square boxes, tall multi-story flats, towers of shit. No tall ceilings, no wood fires anymore, land parcels halved, then halved again and again. Now only rich people have gardens. Well, I live in a garden, but it's someone else's garden, lol. Shitty electric fires and gas stoves even replaced logs and coal, and the free energy heaters of radium stoves, and electromagnetic induction heaters, downgrading slowly over time, so that no one notices. The distinction between construction and creation are now clear in light of Christian 21's information and revelations. Fractal weaving isn't work, or even considered building in our third density understandings. It is sustained coherence, anchored and amplified. Sustained and concentrated benevolent intention, when sung with the right tones, will create psionic architecture. The higher the density, the more complex the structures are, then at 12 plus density, you are manifesting entire realities, complex equipment, complete machinery, because the intelligent simulation trusts you and your benevolent intention. Don't forget that the Aether is intelligent software. It reacts to your mood, thoughts, and actions. The same as having faster data servers in the office, you can send and receive larger files faster and enjoy better graphics and game player experience. The 9th density architecture is sung into existence, melding sound and light into a crystalline form that the 4th density parasites can't even touch, they can't even go near them. So they density suppress. These locations infill the area with gold idols and demonic figures and carvings. This is all put in place by technology, or the Loyalists and Freemasons. Any sacrifice in these locations will not be parasitic, as like I say, they can't travel to these places. That's why they had to take out the spirit tree in the first place, and kill the giants, because a giant's frequency is massive. A giant's toroidal field extends for dozens of miles in front, behind, and at either side of the giant. This field of positivity would incinerate Draco battleships on approach. Mountains and giant trees link the high-altitude Aether, physical simulation software, to the crystalline lattice network below in the ground. By turning the tree to stone and snapping the mountains, they cut the power to the realm's healing grid. Without the trees, the prana life force in the air had a 40% drop in oxygen content, and also water prana dropped, making humans live short, the perfect duration for an adolescent harvest. You don't need a population of ancient ones when all you want to do is eat the children. So they kept our lifespans at around 100 years for that reason. The North Star is actually a suppression beam aimed directly at the gaping wound where the spirit tree once stood. It's a permanent 24/7 negative charge to keep the density of the entire gateway suppressed, and importantly, the density of this realm. Realm 3, the known lands, where it matters most. This technology also prevents the spirit tree from being reharmonically grown in the same position, because the Polaris beam is continuous suppression, like trying to grow cress near a Wi-Fi router. Try it. If the tree could be regrown, the realm could be rebooted. Other realms would have increased energy because of the spirit tree's return, and they could club together and mount an attack to free you. The black sun isn't a star. It is a technology that is represented with symbology known of as the black sun. It's the negative battery that replaced the spirit tree, but way down below it, at the bottom of the valve at Hyperborea, meant Meru, northern rock, black rock. They keep it down there in the depths of Sheol for the same reason that we bury food in the ground, to preserve its quality and usability in the best environment. But do not put the Lush battery or black sun down there because it's cold. They put it down there because the frequencies are lower. This naturally helps keep the Lush at the right frequencies. The black sun spins the Lush in an anti-clockwise direction. This is why they tell you that the Earth spins in an anti-clockwise direction. It's their main battery that spins, not the planet itself. By spinning the energy in low frequencies, they are able to store it, keeping it as fresh as possible. I asked Google if the aurora borealis has weakened at all since 2017. Google replied, yes, the aurora borealis became less frequent, fainter, and more restricted to high latitudes around the solar minimum of 2019 to 2020. This period marked the transition from solar cycle 24 to solar cycle 25, which saw the lowest sunspot activity in 100 years. The northern lights disappeared for a while when the sacrificing stopped, basically. That's what it actually was. The physical manifestation of pain and suffering, anger, guilt, sadness, grief, loss, jealousy, spite, hate. Normally, the aurora is present at all times of the day and night, illuminating the nighttime sky so that it never truly gets dark. Back home, dusk is as dark as it gets, with constantly undulating waves of electromagnet simulation ether. The part that says, this period marked the transition from solar cycle 24 to solar cycle 25, which saw the lowest sunspot activity in 100 years, is obviously a load of complete bollocks to keep your attention aimed at solar systems, globe fakery, solar flares as a scare tactic. There's always got to be fear about something, anything, giant gay alien spiders if there was nothing else left to scare you with. Fear lowers frequency, changes focus, diverts attention, causes and attracts more fear, vibration lowers, and so on, in a cycle. Notice how COVID ended the very same day that the war in Ukraine started? I was in Chelmsford prison when that happened. I was on the induction wing, been in there 2 weeks. I clocked, straight away. I said to my cellmate, here, bruv, looks like COVID was cured by the war in Ukraine. I broke it down for him how it was all fake, all the footage, all the war scenes. My cellmate reckoned that they had to fake scenes of the conflict because on the front line. He kept repeating that statement like he had heard it somewhere or someone else said it once, and it sounded good, embedded. They have to fake war scenes because Western media is not embedded on the front line. What a wanker. I also broke down the Ukraine supermarket rocket strike for him. It came on TV in image only, from a distance, of a rocket about to hit a building from directly above, and some footage of a lot of rubble with a child's soft toy in the middle. I pointed out that if this was a busy shopping center, why is the car park filled with combine harvesters and tractor trailers and old lorries and farm equipment? It's 'cause that's what they drive, Leon. I'm like, you're a div, bruv. What, you think everyone smokes about Kiev in combined fucking harvesters to go fucking shopping in the fucking city? You're a fucking div, mate. And the bear in the rubble? Macus, bruv. Also the frozen still image taken milliseconds before the apparent strike happened. It was a still from a video apparently. In that case, why not show the video? Just a photograph? Of a cruise missile about to penetrate a roof from directly above? Mac as fuck, bruv. The whole thing was Mac as absolute fuck. Every apparent war scene was so obviously staged, it was embarrassingly Mac. Don't forget that when the spirit tree is regrown again from the blueprint, That is the moment that all 178 worlds will again have full energy at their disposal. The parasites regulated the energetic natural energy for the whole gateway by taking out the central spirit tree, so no one had enough power to mount an attack against them, as discussed. So when the tree is back again, the toroidal field will be as strong as it used to be, boosted tenfold by the excitement and rejoicing of over 14,000 separate and highly evolved species that live on Gateway 10 billions of beings going fucking mental with excitement simultaneously. Have you ever seen 100,000 Ewoks body popping? Big love, XX.